visiting all the points on the map and meeting hundreds of people along the way. I'm going to take you on a journey through 5 major areas of life in modern China. The political system, the economy, science and innovation, ecology, and people's livelihood. Let's discover a China on the map. I arrived in China 25 years ago, and at the beginning, no one said to me, "Oh, you must be there for the economy." But in the decades since, despite the perennial predictions of imminent collapse, China's economy has soared, and without a break. 40 years since the start of what China calls the reform and opening up, its economy has gone from 10th biggest in the world to number 2. The COVID-19 pandemic has grievously impacted the whole world's economy, and as the globe's largest exporter and recipient of foreign investment, and the second largest consumer market, it's important for China to set the right course. That direction of China's economy affects the whole world now. I've come to Yunnan, China's southwestern province. The provincial capital is Kunming, famed for its year-round sunshine, from which it gets its nickname, City of Eternal Spring. And it has special meaning for me too. This was the starting point of my trip to China 25 years ago. Today we are at Kunming Railway Station for another starting point, because this is where passenger trains on the newly opened China-Laos Railway line
女士们、
depart.
先生们，大家好，欢迎乘坐本次列车。列車運行前方將到達玉溪站。สบายดี您ดีต้องหาทำมาขี่รถไฟรถไฟ EMU 汉速。
到西双版纳是多长时间呢？
从昆明出发到四川版纳的话是有4小时20分钟，因为我们这趟列车的话是每一个站都有在停。如果是直达的话，就时间会更要短一些。
那个速度是多少呢？
我们这一条线的话，我们的隧道比较多，然后桥梁也比较多，
速度要慢一点。
对，为了安全，我们目前的时速是160。
CLR is an electrified railway connecting Kunming City at the China end here in Yunnan and Vientiane City, capital of Laos, over a distance of 1,035 kilometers. Before its opening, Laos had only 3.5 kilometers of railway in the whole country. This new line adds another 422 kilometers. It's the first railway project built with majority Chinese investment outside of China, jointly operated by China and Laos, and directly connected to China's railway network. In 2.5 decades in China, I've only ever flown in and out of the country. The idea of getting on a train in China and getting off in a different country is, for a train lover like me, quite a thrill. But the CLR doesn't just take passengers. The Kunming Center of China United International Rail Containers is the departure station for international freight trains along the route. It's also Yunnan's largest container yard. It takes goods about 26 hours to get from Kunming to Vientiane, including clearing customs, compared with the current 3 to 10 days for trucks traveling by road. Since the line opened, cargo from across China has gathered here in Kunming on its way to Southeast Asia. Trains don't just depart from here, they can also clear customs.
我们制定了专门的一个通关方案，在昆明中心站集结的货物采用转关模式申报，在我们昆明中心站完成海关的查验作业，提高货物在口岸的一个通关的一个时效。
Less than 1 month after the opening of CLR, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, came into force. The agreement was launched by the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, and has 15 members, including China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, Malaysia, and New Zealand. This signals the official establishment of the largest trade bloc in history, covering 30% of the world's population and 30% of global GDP. The 15 RCEP member countries are all significant trade partners of Yunnan province, with neighboring Vietnam and Laos both sharing land borders with the province. Within a month of operations kicking off at CLR, the total value of international freight had already exceeded 1 billion Chinese yuan.
I think the Chinese strategy is basically, let's grow the East Asian economy as quickly as possible. Let's integrate the East Asian economy as far as possible. But I think that is still some long way off.
A few months ahead of the opening of CLR and 2,000 kilometers away in Shanghai, the first train on the China-Europe Railway Express also rolled into action. Shanghai Express is leaving Shanghai's Minhang Station, fully loaded with 50 containers of clothes, electronics, and photovoltaic products. It will travel about 2 weeks, cross the border into Kazakhstan via the Alato Pass, then on through Russia, Belarus, and Poland, before arriving in Hamburg, Germany. Since 2020, with COVID-19 disrupting international transport, China-Europe freight trains running between China, Europe, and the nations along the route have continued to buck this trend. Shanghai Express is managed and operated by Shanghai Orient Silk Road Intermodal. It provides what it calls door-to-door services, which include delivery taking, loading, and forwarding to Germany, and heading the other way to Shanghai. I met Wang Jingqiu, board director of the firm, at the Minhang Station.
上海号为什么现在才开始有了？
上海是一个制造业极其发达的一个地方，所以上海的这个货源的这个需求、运输的需求还是始终是在高位运行的，对吧？现在港口拥堵，对我们上海的产品出去，境外优秀的产品进来，希望有火车加以来补充一下，尤其是到这个我们欧洲的内陆国家。
The terminal station of Shanghai Express in Europe is Hamburg, the largest port in Germany and one of the continent's biggest hubs for trade with China. A third of containers handled here, that was over 2.4 million containers last year, come from or leave for China.
We have seen during the pandemic growth of cargo transportation on rail due to the disruptions in the global supply chain. It was a very good additional service being added to the maritime services by ship to the clients in order to transport their cargo reliable in time from China to Europe and back.
For over a decade, since the first line opened in 2011, China-Europe Railway Express has transported over 40,000 trains delivering goods with a total value of over $200 billion. And 73 operating lines connect 160 cities in 22 European countries.
China is today one of Europe's most important trading partners. We have seen with the corona crisis that our economies, both in China and in Europe, depend on global supply chains. And the big benefit for customers when they use rail freight is that their supply chains can go green and be global and environmentally friendly at the same time.
The launch of the China-Laos Railroad and the new China Railway Express are aimed at boosting interaction between the domestic and international markets. However, China's economy has made strategic adjustments in recent years, shifting from a highly export-oriented economy to domestic circulation. But why? The beginning of 2020 witnessed the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Faced with challenges at home and abroad and ongoing troubles in the trade relationship with the US, China has proposed what it calls the new development pattern, where domestic and foreign markets can boost each other, with the domestic market as the mainstay. This is what is sometimes called dual circulation.
Focusing on the domestic economy in terms of consumption still maintaining an openness to the world, particularly in this new way with the developing world, that's what the term means.
But how is it different from what was happening before? To figure it out, I visited Zhu Ming, former Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund and Chair of the National Institute of Financial Research of Tsinghua University.
At a certain point, when China moved into the $10,000 per capita GDP and moved into high income stages, and we realized we need to move into the domestic market, domestic economy, right? In that sense, the dual circulation concept pumped up. Obviously, economic security is also the issues.
As China becomes more developed, it will become a lesser percentage of its economy which devotes to foreign trade. It's about 30% at the present time, and that's a decline quite considerably from the 2000s. So that's a totally sort of natural process.
When you have the largest population in the world, the sheer size of your potential domestic market for homegrown goods and services is always going to be a massive advantage. Smaller countries have to rely primarily on exports to survive. But are Chinese domestic brands ready for the big time? Junlebao Dairy Group was founded in 1995. It ventured into the milk powder business only in 2014, when Chinese infant formula made up just 30% of the market. It was not an auspicious start, with peers, experts, and some rival firms suggesting they were late to the game and unlikely to succeed.
12年，一次我去德国参加一个会展，发现很多我们的中国的消费者到药店里一箱一箱把奶粉就抢光了。从我内心呢，就有一种受到一种刺激，就下决心呢，一定要把奶粉做起来，让我们中国孩子能喝上我们自己家的奶粉。
And here on the Bashang grassland in northern China's Hebei province is where China hopes trust will start again. This is China's first all-in-one infant formula production base with pasture land, dairy cattle breeding, and milk powder processing, all in one place, allowing for lots of very careful supervision. Every link in the milk powder manufacturing chain is controlled, so safety and quality are, in theory at least, easier to guarantee.
我们所在的旗帜牧场呢，存栏是3万头，有数万亩燕麦草的草原，然后每年收割2个季节，收割完了以后呢，仓储到我们的牧场，然后每天供给奶牛食用。这个项圈的作用呢是很大的啊，它会记录每一头奶牛24小时呢运行轨迹，它什么时间吃的料，什么时间挤的奶，然后什么时间进行反刍，还可以监控它健康状况。
Milk fresh from the cows flows directly into the factory via low-temperature, airtight pipes in under a minute. The whole process, from fresh milk to infant formula, takes only 2 hours. So, they say, that nutrients can be better preserved in the final product.
在生产模式和工艺上面是一个双创新，不需要经过鲜牛奶的运输呀、储运的这样的一个过程。生牛乳它从挤出来的时候，里边的活性物质是最高的，大概3-4个小时的时候，它的这个量就会逐渐开始衰减。我们这个零距离一体化的这种生产模式，也能保证在2小时以内开始生产加工，那它会最大程度的保留这个鲜活的这种成分。
2021 saw the opening of Junlebao Dairy Innovation Research Institute.
我觉得未来呢，菌卵发展呢，特别是在内循环的这种背景下呢，要靠科技、靠创新、靠打破国外垄断的一些技术来支撑我们的一个发展。我们从奶牛的2种改良到它胚胎移植，提升我们奶牛的品质和单产，到我们的科技。 产品的创新都是推动我们未来菌卵发展的一个主要动力。
Thanks in part to the efforts of enterprises like Junlebao, plus new regulations brought in by the authorities, the market for domestic milk powder has begun to recover, from its lowest point of 30% to now around 3/4 of it. The rise of home brands like Junlebao is exactly the kind of boost that China's looking for in its goal of making made-in-China products the mainstay of the domestic economy. The Chinese government is clearly aware of the potential of the domestic market, a market that, if exploited, could be the driver for the rapid development of China's economy in the next decade, just as exports were the big driver in years past. But in these hyper-globalized times, it's surely impossible to separate any country's economy completely from the huge engine of the world economy. 4 decades ago, China began the process it calls reform and opening up, and started on the path of economically turning outwards towards the world. 2 decades later, it joined the WTO as it pushed to enhance its international trade relations. Now in 2022, faced with resurging global unilateralism and trade protectionism, plus a populist pushback against globalization, can China keep liberalizing its economy and continue opening up to global trade?
The fact that the US and China both face external challenges that neither of them can manage by itself alone becomes a powerful force for their finding ways to cooperate or coordinate, even if they're at the same time fierce rivals.
In 2013, China's first free trade zone was set up in Shanghai to explore the path towards further opening up. 6 years later, a larger and more adventurous pilot scheme was added, Lingang Special Area. My first stop there is a rather mysterious and supersized, or should I say giga, manufacturing plant. This is Tesla's Gigafactory, sometimes called Gigafactory 3, in Shanghai's Lingang city. After decades of only allowing foreign car manufacturers in if they formed joint ventures here, Tesla is the first exclusively foreign-owned automobile company in the country. It also happens to be the largest foreign-funded manufacturing project in Shanghai's history. And given its scale, the crazy thing is it took less than a year to start operations from project launch in 2018.
那所有的审批都是在这个时间段内非常顺利的完成，然后每天看到就是不停的有这个厂房慢慢的起来，哇，非常激动。在这个过程当中，我觉得不仅仅是体现了上海速度，可能也体现了中国速度。
As of 2021, Tesla's Shanghai plant pumps out over 480,000 vehicles a year, beating even their original and largest factory in California, the top manufacturer in North America. That means that roughly every minute, one vehicle comes off this assembly line, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
我们管这里叫 Tesla 的 DNA 加中国的工匠精神因为现在的中国制造已经是全世界非常领先的制造工艺了。
对对对。
这边是焊接车间，
都是机器人做的。
这里主要都是机器人做。这两个工具属于两个比较重劳动力的。
对。
这非常壮观，所有的机器人就在这里，就差几厘米，然后过去，而且它要互相协调，要不然同车在这边就会撞着。
Tesla's Shanghai plant is supported by Lingang's new energy vehicle industrial chain. Currently, over 90% of the parts used in the plant are produced locally, higher even than their Californian cousin. Tesla is roosting the wider smart car industry in Lingang. This area is now a heaven for the development of autonomous or self-driving cars. And in fact, not just cars. In 2021, Yangshan Port near the central area of Lingang broke their own world record with a throughput of 22.8 million containers. Yangshan Phase 4 Automated Terminal is the latest addition to the cargo facilities and integrates many new technologies. Autopilot, part of China's biggest automobile manufacturer, SAIC Motor, is developing autonomous trucks here. Every day, their self-driving vehicles shuttle over the East Sea Bridge that connects the port and the central area of Lingang. They're programmed to stop themselves in the event of system failure.
油门、刹车、方向盘都是电脑控制的，我第一次看到。
从最开始这个车刚上桥的时候，我们坐在车上的开发人员、测试工程师，可能也有那么一丢丢害怕，因为你不知道会面临什么情况。到现在为止，你看司机已经完全可以插着手，然后坐在那里。
In the vehicle roll-on roll-off terminal at Shanghai Port, automobiles made in China are loaded onto freighters one by one for export overseas. In 2021, China exported more than 2 million cars, double the previous year. Electric vehicles accounted for roughly 1 in 6 of them, 3 times as many as the year before.
特斯拉这个工厂表面看是一个简单工厂，其实背后更象征了中国改革开放自贸区一个欢迎外资到中国投资的一个象征，其实就是全球优秀企业到中国制造，然后再迈向全球，叫全球买卖全球，就是全球的很多的技术到中国进行汇聚，利用中国的产业链和成本优势和市场优势，最终帮助企业走向全球。
It is absolutely essential for China to move up the value chain in terms of its products and production, because as China started, China's economic miracle was based upon China being the low-cost production and became the manufacturing center hub of the entire world.
The 40 years experience say the most important vehicle for Chinese developments is opening policy and reform, linked with the whole world.
As the world's largest trading nation and second largest economy, China's development affects the global economy. So with newfound influence comes a responsibility for setting the right course. Economies, they say, are like big ships. They take a long time to turn. So one thing is for sure, the changes to major economies we see playing out now are going to be affecting us for years to come.
Yes, as an economy becomes bigger and bigger, naturally the domestic economy will play a greater role within its development.
And I think China's facing some difficult challenges as well. How is it going to adjust what I'll call the beginnings of a post-pandemic world?
We will continue to move in line of globalization. So global trade, global technology exchanges, people exchange, and those things will continue, that's for sure.
China's integration into the world economy has been essential for China and greatly beneficial to the world.
Success in the overall growth of the economy for its citizens remains one of the miracles that's occurred in the world in our lifetime.